If Tylenol caused autism, the strongest studies would show it, but they don't. In this video, we'll discuss the actual evidence together and talk about how scary headlines can hurt real families. Let's go. Welcome, my stars of Orion. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. Now, quick disclaimer, this video isn't medical advice, so if you're pregnant or planning to be, talk to your very own clinician about your personalized situation. Okay, the starting point. What was announced? So the US Department of Health and Human Services held a press event where the US President and the Health Secretary said, I'm just going with the brand names by the way, Tylenol, or in Australia and the UK, Panadol, may be linked to autism and that FDA would pursue label changes. So just so it's clear and understandable, I'm just referring to it as Tylenol or Panadol. The brand names of the pain relieving drug paracetamol or whatever the hell you Americans want to call it. Now, shortly after, the FDA posted their own release saying it will begin a process to add a warning about a possible association between prenatal use of paracetamol, Tylenol, Panadol, whatever, and later neurodevelopmental diagnoses, while also noting no causal link has been established and that untreated fever in pregnancy carries risks. And major science and public health outlets quickly responded that the claim of causation is not supported by the strongest available evidence. How about we talk about some prior advocacy leading to current conflicts? So a quick context on why some people worry about bias here. The two most powerful voices behind this announcement, President Trump and the HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., both have long histories promoting ideas that link autism to vaccines or common medications. Now, RFK Jr. previously founded and led Children's Health Defense, an advocacy group that has promoted vaccine autism claims for years. Now, in his HHS confirmation hearings, he refused to say vaccines don't cause autism, leaning on a completely flawed paper, a stance at odds with the scientific consensus and the agencies he now runs. President Trump has repeatedly amplified vaccine autism claims and is engaged with prominent anti-vaccine figures. Trump's alignment with that narrative is well documented and continues in his current remarks. So when leaders have pre-existing public positions on a contested cause, it's reasonable for the public to question whether new government messaging is evidence-led or belief-led. Now, that doesn't automatically make them wrong, but it raises the bar for transparency. And if you're wondering what a good process should look like, our standard, okay, well, let's lead with the strongest studies and acknowledge contrary evidence. Let's separate association from causation clearly. Let's publish methods and sources used for any label or policy change. Invite independent experts with disclosed conflicts to review. And center patient safety, fever risks in pregnancy, in all the communications you do. So with those perceived conflicts on the table, let's do what everyone should do. Let's see what the strongest studies and regulators actually say about this. Number one, the largest, most rigorous study so far, a nationwide study in Sweden, tracked 2.48 million births and used sibling comparisons, a powerful way to control for genetics and shared environment. In simple models, Tylenol users, paracetamol users, looked slightly higher risk. But once you compare siblings, the same mum, the same home, different exposure, the link disappears, vanishes. Translation, the small associations in simpler studies were likely due to confounding not Tylenol, paracetamol causing autism. Number 2, broad expert assessments. Roundups from Nature and Yale's School of Public Health say some observational studies report small associations, but they cannot prove cause and effect. Biases like why someone took the medicine in the first place. Was it for pain, fever, infection? Do they recall in error why they did it? And genetics often explains the signal. Randomized trials would be unethical. So we rely on careful observational designs. And the strongest of those, like the Swedish sibling study, do not support a causal claim between Tylenol, Panadol, and autism. Number 3, the regulators outside of America. That's right. America's not the only country on planet Earth. What? Let's talk about the UK. The MHRA said there is no evidence that taking paracetamol, so the UK Australian equivalent of Tylenol, during pregnancy causes autism. It remains the recommended option when used as directed. Australian experts and TGA, what do they say? Paracetamol remains pregnancy category A and considered safe when appropriately used. Moreover, untreated fever itself can harm pregnancy. So scaring people away from effective fever control will clearly backfire. What about the WHO? They also called the evidence on paracetamol and autism inconsistent and reaffirmed vaccines don't cause autism. And number 4, what did the FDA actually write? Even the FDA's own notice says the evidence describes an association in some studies, not a proven cause, and acknowledges contrary studies, while reminding everyone that alternatives have known pregnancy risks and fever control actually matters. That's not a green light for sweeping claims. It's a cautious administrative step. Oh, by the way, you might also see these lawsuit ads. A quick note on that. So lawsuits aren't laboratories. You know, those little disclaimers. Courtrooms run on legal standards, not the scientific method. So a correlation might carry a case to filing. It doesn't establish biological causation. Several Tylenol cases have been dismissed. Some are on appeal. Litigation can chase a narrative long after stronger studies move on. Now, my favorite bit, a history check. Who doesn't like history? All right, quick history lesson. We've been here before. Last century, it was the refrigerator mother myth, right? Blaming mums for being too cold. Then came vaccine panic. Different decades, same chorus. Find a simple villain, blame the parents, skip the science. And today's Tylenol headline is the new remix. When you zoom out, the pattern isn't eureka. It's just recycled blame. Now, autism was first identified for the most part in 1943 by a child psychiatrist, Leo Kanner. He published the first detailed clinical description of autism. Paracetamol, or Tylenol, arrived between 1877 and 1887, but hang on, the compound was synthesized and tried in humans, but was largely set aside until being rediscovered in the mid-20th century. Tylenol was introduced in the US by prescription in 1955. Panadol, paracetamol, launched as prescription only in the UK in 1955 and in 1958 in Australia. Autism was clearly described in the medical literature decades before Tylenol or Panadol were consumer staples, like over the counter. Timelines don't prove or disprove causation on their own, but they do show autism wasn't born with Tylenol. And about those skyrocketing autism rates you keep hearing about, most of the rise is on paper. Not because people suddenly caught the tism. The criteria widened. Asperger's was folded in. Schools started screening. Pediatricians got better training. Families found good quality assessors. We also reclassified kids who used to be labelled with other categories. We didn't invent more autistic people. We finally got better at seeing people who were always there, which is why bigger numbers don't prove a new cause and why association still isn't causation. Let's talk about that. Association doesn't equal causation. In human words, imagine two things happen together. So you're taking Tylenol, Panadol, whatever, and then there's an autism diagnosis. That doesn't tell us why. Right? Many people take paracetamol and Tylenol because they're sick. They've got a fever, an infection, just pain. Those underlying reasons, plus genetics, stress and environment, can be the real drivers. So when you compare brothers and sisters, same genes, same home, the link fades. It screams confounding. That's exactly what the Swedish study showed. This is the worst part for me. Do you realize we live in a time where the best story beats the bare truth? Like, here's why headlines still win, even when the evidence doesn't. In today's world, the best story often beats the truth. In the current political climate, the bare truth isn't enough. The winner isn't the one with the most data. It's the one with the most compelling story. That's how headlines outrun careful science. And I'm sick to death of it, man. Seriously, a one-liner like Tylenol causes autism is super effective because it's simple and emotional. It also hijacks attention from what actually helps. Like funded supports, shorter wait lists, inclusive classrooms, real jobs. No. Keep it simple, stupid. Simple sells. The truth, what's that? So here's the story I'm telling. The characters are pregnant women or partners. They see a scary headline. Their anxiety spikes. An autistic community already battling stigma braces for another round of blame. We're blaming women for getting pregnant, taking a completely safe pain relief. It's your fault. What? No, the villain, not medicine, not autism. The villain is the mums, the people, and misinformation stories that skip steps and hurt real people. Weigh the risks on both sides. Fever in pregnancy, taking medication or not taking medication. Decide with your clinician. Not a bloody headline or some half-wit politician. And the stakes are big. If we get the story wrong, pregnant women will avoid treating high fevers, and autistic people will wear more blame. If we get it right, parents feel safer, babies are protected, and our community is treated with dignity. But when the story is fear, the fallout is real. So let's talk about the damage these claims do. The damage of headlines like Tylenol causes autism. Let's be real about this. The stigma and the blame. So parents of autistic kids already get hit with, it's your fault. This pours petrol on that fire. Hurts autistic people by framing autism as a tragedy someone caused. Autistic people aren't a disaster to be prevented. We're people to be understood and supported. When leaders chase a culprit, families hear, someone caused your child. Let's replace blame with support. And what about health harms? People may avoid treating high fevers or severe pain in pregnancy, risking worse outcomes for both the parent and the baby. And policy distraction. The energy spent hunting a simple villain takes focus away from meaningful support, diagnosis access, wait lists, education, employment inclusion, and evidence-based services that actually improve lives. But also, it takes the focus off how shit a job they're actually doing. Plain language bottom line here, my friends, the US president said Tylenol causes autism. The strongest evidence we have does not support that causal claim. Multiple regulators over multiple countries explicitly reject the claim and keep paracetamol as the recommended option in pregnancy when needed. The FDA's step is a precautionary label process acknowledging uncertainty, not proof of harm, and explicitly notes contrary evidence. But isn't being cautious wise, Orion? Why not just add the warning? Caution is good. Confusion is not. Warnings without context can cause undertreatment of fevers, real risks in pregnancy. Clear, balanced labels paired with Clinical guidance protect families best. So talk to your clinician. Manage fever and pain appropriately. Don't let politicians make your medical decisions. And for loved ones, what do you say when this comes up? Here's a few ideas. Autism isn't caused by a single everyday medicine. The best studies don't show that causation. Paracetamol is still recommended during pregnancy when needed. Untreated fevers can be dangerous. Not to mention, the president pretty much just said in general terms, stop taking it, don't take it, stop using it. Autistic people deserve support, not blame. Let's focus on access, inclusion, and services that help, not the moronic conspiracy theories of a couple of boofheads.